All right, welcome to today's embodiment session. And today we are going to be working with something that we work with in every session, really, is the digestion of experience, digestion of emotions, processing of emotions, of samskaras. Lots of different ways we can say this. So I'm going to talk for just a moment at the beginning, and then we'll get into the movement practice. But really, um, one of the main ways that this we can allow for this, it's not something we can ever make happen, right? Um, Emotions and experience are digested when they're ready to be, but we can create the conditions that make it much more likely for that to happen. And for me, one of the most important conditions is safety. And in one sense, uh, it's never going to be completely safe, right? We can't control the world. We can't control our minds. Um, this, for me, has been one of the fundamental realizations of spiritual practice is that control is an illusion. And so, in that sense, safety is not something we can always have perfectly, right? But we can create conditions in which we feel really safe. And in my experience, this happens primarily through myself, right? Because of this fact that we can't control the world. When I create inner safety and when I feel safe with myself, um, then I know that kind of no matter what happens, I'm okay. And this can take a lot of time to come to this point. And it fluctuates, right? It's some days we feel it more than others, but one of the main ways that I practice this inner safety is by recognizing when judgment arises, because with again, I can't necessarily control whether I'm judging myself or not. But the more I can notice that it arises, notice that my mind is doing the judgment thing, the more I can let go of that. And also just by having the intention not to judge myself. And a lot of times, I'm just speaking from my own experience, and each of you will have a different way that this arises. But a lot of times it can be like, haven't I already dealt with this? Haven't I already processed this? Why is this still coming up for me? Or this isn't spiritual. It's not spiritual to feel this angry or to feel this confused or whatever it is that's arising. And there can be a lot of other judgments that we have towards ourselves when something arises. Especially the reason why something hasn't been processed already is because we have some resistance to doing so. And that could be judgment, it could be fear, it could be, whatever our unique uh, constellation is of resistance. So just having that intention to hold yourself in safety, hold yourself in your own safety, that you are um, going to be okay with whatever arises. And then also knowing, last thing I'll say before we begin, just knowing that sometimes things arise. We can also have judgment when things don't arise. Like, can't I work with something? Or why isn't something coming up for me? Am I doing it right? Maybe nothing's happening. And that has a lot to do with just patience and giving it the space to arise. And like little things can be really important. It can be really good when just like little moments, they don't have to be labeled. You don't have to understand what's happening. You don't have to know what emotion is coming through. And it also doesn't have to be a big thing. You may see some people having these like big processes and huge crying and releasing, and that's great. And it's also great sometimes you just have a little like, phew, there's just a little something. And that is also just as valuable, because when you're really giving space regularly, you're doing these practices regularly, that's all that really may occur is just these little things that come through, and that is just as useful. All right, so let's get our music going, and then we'll feel all this in the body and let it happen as it does. So get your Spotify ready and we'll count down and press play together. 3, 2, 1, play. And the first track is silent. We'll be just meditating here at the beginning. So find a comfortable position. Sitting, standing, laying down, however you like. And we'll just spend a few moments breathing. Allow your breath to move through your body. Let your jaw relax. Allowing your attention to rest on something other than thought. We use this cue often in meditation to focus on something other than thought. It's nice when it can short circuit the mind. And we'll use this cue also in movement. And as you're sensing and feeling your body as you're breathing, just allowing your body to speak to you. Just by opening the inner ear. And even now, maybe there's some movement. It doesn't have to be, but you can allow for anything that arises. Yeah, just right from the beginning, letting go of the idea that this needs to look any particular way. Maybe there's a mantra that you're working with, or a breathing practice. Just for the last minute or so here, if you want to bring that in. And now letting your body move more. This first song is just for you to come into your practice. So you can let go of any intention that I've given you, any theme for the class. Just there's nothing right now that you have to do other than whatever movements, whatever breath, whatever stillness helps you come into your own practice, helps you come into contact with yourself, with your own experience. And really just explore. What does it feel like to be you in this moment, in this practice? Noticing what parts of your body start to light up, where it's easy to come into contact with yourself, and then maybe there's some areas of your body, of your psyche, as these are like the same thing, really. This is part of our practice, is that the two are not separate. Which parts are harder to feel? Maybe even some sound can come out. Letting the music come into your body, letting the music inspire, maybe sometimes challenge, I will say, for the practice today. Not all of the music is necessarily meant to be pleasing. Some of it is meant to inspire. And so from wherever you are now, just come into relative stillness. You can still be moving a little bit, but relatively more still, so that you can tune in to the central channel. And you're going to pick a place that you want to work with today, maybe somewhere along this central channel. You could pick anywhere in the body. Ideally, this place would pick itself, right? It would present itself, but some days that happens more easily than others. So maybe like the lower belly or the heart. These are areas that can be very charged, or the throat or the head or somewhere else. Somewhere that feels alive for you. Somewhere that might have some undigested experience or emotion. that might want to arise today. So you're just inviting, allowing, and breathing into whatever area presents itself. And as we practice today, you're going to stay with this area. So you might, like maybe in the beginning, if you realize, oh, I picked the wrong spot, you can pick another spot once, but don't be switching a bunch of times. You're just going to pick one and stick with it. Because that's also part of the process, is committing, staying with something even when it feels blocked or inert. But for now, you're just breathing, you're creating space, inviting, allowing, and even loving. And so this is the space you can, this spot, this place, this area is the place you can invite and breathe into through each part of the practice that we move through. And we're going now into a basic cat-cow, so from hands and knees. And you just take your time to get there. You never have to pop up or anything. You let your body flow into the next invitation. And through some of these more familiar movements, we're going to just build some internal safety. And so that might mean moving in ways that feel just really comfortable, really safe for you. You could also, there's sometimes external safety, like you might want to close a window or a door, or sometimes just having that freedom to be able to know you're in your own space. Make sure everything's taken care of. And letting your body move however it wants to through the starting point of the cat's breath. And almost as if you could breathe safety into your cells, into your tissues. Maybe including a child's pose, sitting back on the heels. If that feels good, that can be a very internal, moving pose where you really connect with yourself and accept, cultivate a kind of acceptance. For me, this is one of the key points of safety, is just that total self-acceptance. And just continuing, you can always use my words as just a starting point, an inspiration. If you want to flow through child's pose and cat's breath, and maybe add in anything else that feels really nourishing. Really allowing yourself to feel held in your own container. And the next thing we're shifting is into downward dog in your own time. If you're doing two sides of something, just taking the time to finish up whatever is in process. And we're touching now upon another component of this whole process, which is willingness. Willingness. It's a kind of sometimes it could feel like courage. Sometimes it might feel like surrender. Sometimes it may feel like just a simple yes. I'm willing to be with whatever arises. And you can just feel into how true that feels for you right now. It may not feel very true, and that's part of the acceptance, and just allowing the down dog or whatever else arises. Sometimes in downward dog, I like to do a little bit of shaking, a little bit of like bouncing the heels. That can be really good for moving energy, but just staying with whatever feels good in your body. Sometimes it's more like whatever feels right in your body, because what feels right doesn't necessarily always feel good. And eventually you're going to make your way to the front of the mat. Preparing for some sun salutations. So just letting your body rise all the way up to standing. And take a moment standing to just feel. You could be moving, you could be shaking, you could be just standing in stillness to Kind of feel everything that has happened so far. And take a few breaths into the area you've chosen to work with. And you notice any sensations there. Sometimes the sensations are labelable, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they come with a little emotion or a little kind of a psycho-spiritual residue. Just be with that. You just allow it, breathe into it, breathe out from it. And let that area lead your sun salutation. So you're just going to go into your own sun salutation. I'll guide the first one for anyone who needs a little bit of structure, but if you are good with your sun salutation, you just go into your own flow. But otherwise, from inhaling into your area, you reach the arms up to the sky. And then exhale, forward bend. Stepping back to plank. And take a deep inhale in plank into your area. Exhale, lower down to the earth. Inhale into a cobra or an upward dog, lifting the chest. And then exhale back to downward dog. And stepping or jumping forward, back to forward bend. And you're just at your own pace here. And then rising all the way up to standing. And so that's just the basic flow, and you can make any modifications, additions, subtractions. But this is the practice part. This is where you give yourself space for something to arise. You let the poses move you. So if you do a lot of sun salutations and you find yourself like really getting into your habitual patterns, see if you can slow it down or maybe speed it up if that's out of your habitual way. Give yourself permission for this to appear however it does for you today. Maybe not how you thought it would. The poses, the sun salutation is the structure, and then if something does arise, if emotion, past experience, samskaras arise, then you may wind up feeling like you need to move outside of the structure. And at the same time, you don't need to create anything. Let the music come into your body and let your body respond to it. Maybe you're using silence. Some of you just do the same thing with the silence. Let your body be your teacher. The body speaks in movement and sensation. That's what you're listening to. And you need to make space for that to arise. By shifting your focus away from the content of your thoughts, the words, the verbal, the linguistic. If you want to add in some warrior poses to your sun salutations or to whatever has arisen in your practice, you can add a warrior. This is just for those of you who structure helps. One foot stepped forward, one leg back, front knee bent. And what happens to your area? Bring your focus back to that place that might hold something for you. Breathe into it. Feed the energy of the pose to that area. And just with total patience. And last little bit for the sun salutation, for the warriors, if you have another side that you want to do. What if you let that area move your body instead of your mind or your nervous system or however you might be thinking of it? What if that place that you've chosen to work with was where the movement came from? And so I want you to do that now. It's a little bit of free movement without any structure. Bring your awareness to that area. Breathe into it. Relax. And just give it the reins. Give that area control. Sometimes if you haven't done a practice like this before, then it can be good just to like shake a little bit or just do some movement to kind of clear your habitual patterns and then just see what arises. It doesn't have to look like anything. It could look like dance, it could look like yoga poses, it could look like who knows. And this is with curiosity, with interest. What do you have to teach me? What can you show me about myself, about yourself? What have you always wanted to say but never had the chance? And so you can continue this kind of exploration, cultivation of curiosity in free movement. If you want a little bit of structure, you can start with some back bending just from standing. From standing, maybe bringing the hands to the lower back or the hips, and just starting to lift the chest up and back. Almost like a standing cat-cow, right? Then you can release it and come forward, maybe rounding a little bit. Starting to explore the openness of the spine through that standing back bend. Just a few times like that. See how that arises for you. And we start to go into these back bends. The heart is physically, the chest is, and the shoulders are opening. We can ask the heart to speak to us through these back bends. Sometimes it can even help to put your hands to touch somewhere on the chest, on the heart. And you can continue to work standing. You can also move into a cobra on the ground. This can be very grounding at the same time. Yeah, or any position that works for you. And maybe as you breathe, connecting the area that you've chosen to work with your heart. And if you've chosen to work with your heart, then you just breathe into that. But it can be really good if you've chosen another area to just kind of use your breath, use the back bends to bring an association, a connection, a love to your chosen place. Using the motion of the back bend only to help get you in touch with this area, to open. There's absolutely no trying to get to any certain shape of a pose, or not even trying to get more open, right? Because that's like putting a conceptual overlay of that this is better than not being open. Could also be the back of the heart is sometimes more active than the front. And just take a moment. It can be in stillness or like a continuation of this movement, but a little bit of integration. Meaning you're just kind of checking in with everything. Breathing into your whole body, feeling the connectedness. Relaxing the jaw again. And we're going to go into a little sequence now. That will start from standing. So just eventually making your way to standing. And it's just a very simple sequence that you can let evolve. But from standing, you're going to lift the right leg out in front of you, just kind of bending the knee and lifting that right leg up. Take a moment to balance there, to breathe. The leg could be bent or straight, it doesn't matter. And then from there, shifting back into warrior 3. So it's a bit of a challenge, balancing, bringing the torso towards parallel with the ground, the back leg up. Good. Any version of the pose is fine. It's just a basic shape. And then stepping that leg all the way back to the ground for warrior 1. And then you can step forward to standing. So that's just the very simple 3 poses. Try it on the other side and just make it your own. And you're at your own pace now, but just it's the balancing with the leg lifted, then it's warrior 3, and then it's warrior 1 with the back foot down and the front knee bent. And just go through them at your pace. It might mean you only go through it once, or you might go through many times. And here we're using structure. We're coming back into structure, which can be safer sometimes, can feel safer than free movement. But also give yourself permission to stay with what is real. If starting a sequence takes you out of connection to what's coming through, then stay with what keeps you in connection. Feeding these poses to your area, feeding the energy of these poses to that area that you're working with, that you're breathing into, that you're sensing, feeling, allowing. And just let this evolve now into what is true for you in this moment. It might be staying in the safety of the sequence. It might be moving into something else entirely. Mm-hmm. And just maybe noticing what the mind does with all of this. The narrative that may arise or not. But if it is, if you are having narrative arise or maybe happening this whole time, that's totally fine too. And we're just not giving it any importance, right? It's the language of the body that we're listening to, that we're elevating here. That's what this space is for. Good. Just cultivating that patience also. Each of these things that we're cultivating, they're just like aspects of each other. Patience is kind of another way of saying willingness. willing to be with whatever arises, patience for things to happen in their own time. Acceptance of yourself, whatever part of the process you're in. So we're coming into the last song here before Shavasana, and I'll give you a pose or two that you can do. But really, first and foremost, let this be integration. It could be continued release and arising of whatever is there. But this could be just completely free movement. Maybe kind of swirling around on the floor, or feeling a desire for some last pose or two that your body really calls for. Or maybe just a wide-legged forward bend, seated, if you like. The structure that you may take advantage of would be to sit with the legs extended in like a V shape, and maybe let the upper body move however it does. And slowly folding down through the center. But staying with this. It's gentler, it's softer, this music. It's subtler, right? There's a greater subtlety that we can access. Breathing into that place of significance for you. And just staying with that subtle movement of energy. And that moves through your body and through the environment. So everything is connected. And we're shifting now to Shavasana or meditation at the end. We do have a song for this one, a mantra. So if you'd like to just set yourself up in whatever way feels the best for you, to just receive this peace into your body. Oh, that brings our practice to a close. Please take some extra time before you go on to your next thing. Maybe drink some water, sit around doing nothing for at least a couple minutes. Thank you so much for being here with me, practicing with me, and see you next time.